Thank you so much for joining the FinTech Innovation Lab's webinar to really discuss the cohort and the application opening for FY24. We are very fortunate to have Sarah from MasterCard. MasterCard has been in the program for 9 years, and Lindsay from 55 Redefined, who was in the lab last year as a startup with us. And as we kind of go through the session, we will have a big section of the panel where both of them will introduce themselves and really talk about the rich experience. But before we get into that, we will cover a bit of an overview of the lab, then do the panel, and then we'll open it up to questions for everyone. I run the FinTech Innovation Lab at Accenture. We started the lab about 13 years ago. We are about to enter our 14th year at Accenture and the Partnership Fund for New York City in New York, and with the goal of really connecting entrepreneurs with large financial services institutions to get mentorship, to understand how their product really fits into the large ecosystem of financial services. So if you're an enterprise tech, fintech, insurtech that is really solving problems for large institutions within the financial services, whether that be asset managers, banks, insurance companies, then this is really the place for you. If you have innovative products and services that really are targeted towards large financial services institutions, we are very excited to engage with you in this capacity. And really, you should think of the FinTech Innovation Lab as the bridge that does that connection between a large enterprise and a small startup to really understand and see how your product is fitting into that market space. And we will get into a little more detail, but before we really talk about how that connection works, some of the statistics that we would really like to share to give you a sense of what we track. So there are about 100 plus alumni that have gone through the New York chapter, and they have collectively, post going through the lab, raised 2.6 billion. And the 2.6 billion is pretty evenly spread throughout the portfolio of the 100 plus startups that we have. We, as I mentioned, entering our 14th year. We have about 40 plus financial services institutions, and we will get to a slide where you can kind of see the variety of those institutions and who they are. We have 350 proof of concepts. So obviously, no one can sell anything to a bank in a very short period of time. But the big marker of success is really the understanding of being able to start a proof of concept with the large financial services institutions. And these are underway proof of concepts at the end of the 3-month program that if you get selected in, at the end of the program, if you're starting a proof of concept, a serious discussion for the proof of the concept, or you've already started the proof of concept, that is what we track. So if you do the math, roughly each startup in the lab is up with 3 to 4 proof of concepts. And given the partnership fund's involvement, we also have a civic mission associated to the lab, which is to create jobs and economic activity in New York City. So we track the amount of jobs created here. And with that civic mission framing, we are able to really garner a very high level of engagement from financial services executives. Very senior folks are able to really spend some time with the entrepreneurs and really adopt them for those 3 months into their enterprises to give you access and understanding of how that works. And therefore, we have Sarah here today, and she's going to talk a little bit about, as we get into the panel, what the large institutions really get out of the program and why they participate. You can also see a list of alumni, and the rest of them are on our website. And while you're talking about this, it's worth mentioning that the alumni network is much broader than just New York. We have a chapter in London and APAC, so you basically get access to this broad alumni network. Here's a list of our financial services institution partners. We do not charge our financial services institutional partners to really participate in the lab. What we ask them to do is far more valuable, which is their expertise, their time. So they come to the table with a mentorship mindset, and they're extremely involved from the entirety of the program. So we start the year by having conversations with the CIOs and the CTOs of these institutions and head of partnerships, head of innovations in these institutions to understand their priorities. And vis-a-vis those priorities, we work with startups and encourage them to apply, which is what we're doing today. We talk to a lot of potential applicants throughout the year. And then once you have submitted your applications, we revert back to these financial services institutions for them to review your application. So the selection process is deeply driven by the financial services institutions, the priorities, the participation in the lab, and ultimately the 12 weeks that they spend with you is very much at the heart of the program. We also have a list of venture capitalists around the table, and we realize that they are of various stages. And when you're dealing with entrepreneurs, having them around the table is really helpful to build relationships, coaching. So they're available in an office hour format, and we'll provide some coaching throughout the program, but that is a bit more self-serve based aspect of the program. So what do participants really get once they apply to the program and if they're selected? Each startup ends up getting mentored by 4 or 6 financial services institutions. This can be a variety of institutions. Sometimes it's a mix of insurance and banks and asset managers based on the type of product that you have. The ranking and the selection is happening directly from them. So when they raise their hand and rank a set of startups to mentor, we orchestrate the pairing to really get each startup 4 to 6 mentors that would be really able to help them get a variety of opinions and also are a bit of a representative of the broad industry. At various points of the program, you get opportunities to engage with the balance of them. And we've also had many scenarios where toward the end of the program, people start more engagement with other partners that are not directly mentoring you. But for those 12 weeks, the majority of the focus is working with those 4 to 6 mentors that you have. And throughout the program, the 4 to 6 mentors that you have have opportunities to connect with each other. So there's cross-pollination that happens, and there's a sense of like camaraderie, understanding different types of use cases. And at the end of this, you get a really good sense of what use cases are really landing. And what is really resonating, and how do you tweak your product and services to really make this work for your target customers. As I mentioned, there are 350 proof of concepts that have been produced out of the lab over the course of the 100 alumni that we have. You spend 2/3 of your program with financial services institution. The remaining 1/3 is really divided in leadership program and engagement. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, and engaging with the seasoned entrepreneurs in a more advisory format that we have. Also, it's worth mentioning that there's no fee to apply for the program. In terms of the leadership program, the content and the focus of this is really providing very relevant, highly actionable, practical set of leadership dynamics and components. So we do a few panels, and the people on the panels are decision makers from financial services institutions, whether that is from their procurement department or regulatory and compliance spaces, or people who are making decisions around pilots and proof of concepts. We also do some meetings with very senior individuals, such as last year we met Larry Fink and Henry Kravis, and that is also a very core component of the program. And we also meet regulators. So we take the class to meet regulators in DC and also in New York. And the focus of this is that you're selling into an environment that's highly regulated. So it's very helpful to understand that environment. And very often, one or two companies each year really come back from DC and these meetings from the New York regulators with some use cases or articulation of pitches, et cetera, that's highly relevant, and how they're really tailoring that message to the institutions that they're selling into. And it's also worth mentioning that towards the end of the program, you get a lot of exposure to Accenture leadership and opportunity to really build relationships there. This is a list of our entrepreneurs in residence. So this is a niche list of individuals that are ex-regulators, ex-CTOs, and they are available to the cohort to really discuss topics that you might not want to talk to your target customer about. So how to grow your talent, how to build your business, etc., how to price your products. And as we kind of wrap up this section and enter the panel, this is really key in terms of who should apply. So if you are a financial services focused startup, that is B2B, B2B2C, or white label solution, you are at least a beta ready product by the time that the lab starts in March, late March, early April. So you're able to show up with a product that can be tested and you could do a POC. This is a very good forum for startups that are a little more seasoned, have shown some traction in customers that might have success in other regions or other industries and want to test out North America or financial services. So we get a variety of applicants, and as you can imagine, based on the topic that you're working on, it can vary quite a lot in terms of where your level is. And if you have raised money, then the sweet spot really turns out to be post-seed Series A. But we have seen successful applications that fall outside of that. We, as I was mentioning earlier, have discussions with the CPO, CIO offices to understand the priorities every year. And this is the list of priorities that have come out of this year. And this is a bit of a summary, a high-level view of the 40+ conversations that we have had. But I should mention that if you're doing something that doesn't necessarily fall into this list, we'd still welcome you to apply, because if you think you're doing something innovative and you're doing something that your target customers should hear about, this is directly reviewed and scored by financial services institutions. So we really encourage everyone to apply that might think that they would be wanting to get exposure from the financial services institutions. And lastly, I'll cover the key dates. So today is an exciting day. We started our applications. So the application pipeline is open. We would encourage everyone to apply, and this runs for about a month. The sooner you apply, the quicker we get to start seeing your application. And my team is so happy to give you some feedback and help you position your application in the best possible manner before it gets passed on to the financial services institutions to review. And we will get back to you by end of January to let you know if you've moved on to the shortlist round, which is in-person review and pitch opportunity that happens in February. And then post that, the program really starts early April and runs till late June. And you can see our contact information, our website. We will follow up with an email, and you'll get a similar version of all the information in your inbox that you can share with your teams as you're making decisions about applications. We'll also share a link to the application as we send you an email after this call. So with that, let me stop sharing my screen and invite Sarah and Lindsay on video to have a discussion around their experiences. So why don't we begin with a quick introduction from you, Sarah, and what role you play in the lab.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. Very nice to meet you. My name is Sarah Carrion. So I'm actually part of the MasterCard organization, and I'm our Start Path Open Banking program lead here at MasterCard. I'm also a chaperone as part of the FinTech Innovation Lab, so really representing MasterCard. At a high level, as a corporate partner and chaperone of the FinTech Innovation Lab, I not only review the applications that are submitted by the companies who apply to the program, but I also serve as a judge during the finalist week when the companies come in and pitch their product and solutions. But then most importantly, I am a chaperone and I am really engaged with the companies that I sponsor and who participate in the Innovation Lab and actually serve as their champion internally, right? So connecting them to the relevant business units within MasterCard, identifying potential pilots or proof of concepts with the teams, and also providing them with feedback on their value proposition or capability. And then as part of my day job, I tell you a little bit about StartPath. So StartPath is actually MasterCard's award-winning startup engagement program, which leverages our technology, our expertise, and our channels. The program actually helps innovative startups as well scale and connect to different product and partnership opportunities across the globe with our customer base. So you can think of the StartPath program as similar to the FinTech Innovation Lab, but having a really strong focus on partnerships, and really instead of corporate sponsors, we actually connect the startups with our product organization, who internally raise their hands, guide the startups throughout the organization. And we also do connect our startups to corporates, similar to the FinTech Innovation Lab, as we have a corporate membership program where MasterCard customers can actually get access to the StartPath companies. And the track that I run is specific to open banking, which for those of you who don't know, it's around startups that are actually aggregating financial data and enabling access to new financial services for consumers and small businesses. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Sarah. Lindsay, would you please introduce yourself and talk about your experience at the lab?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Morteza. And hi, Sarah. Sarah, for those of you to be aware, you need to be bidding for her to be your chaperone. She was one of our 5 chaperones on the programme. So my name is Lindsay Simpson. I'm the founder and the CEO of 55 Redefined group of companies. We're a UK-based scale-up business, just over 2 years old, so a baby on the market. And we are one of those companies that didn't fit neatly into any of those tick boxes that Morteza just showed you on his slide. So we're not classic FinTech, we're not classic InsurTech, but what we are is an enterprise business that's been helping large global corporates attract, grow and engage over 50s talent to work for them and over 50s consumers to buy from them. And as much as we are industry agnostic as a company, over 30% of our commercial customers were in financial services. And they were, 30% by number, probably 80% by volume of revenue spent with us. And so that tricked us into really understanding what is it about insurance and financial services in particular that we are doing that is resonating so early on in our business. So we were encouraged to apply to the programme because we weren't sure that we ticked any of the boxes. You know, we wouldn't describe ourselves naturally as a FinTech. And also we're in the UK. At the point of applying for the programme, we had absolutely no presence at all in the US. And so to commit to a programme in New York was a big cost decision for us to kind of take on board. And so I remember a year ago, sat where you are now, listening to these types of calls going, you know, are we really going to commit to, you know, spend at that time, we committed to spend £100,000 on exploring the US market through the programme and a couple of other things. Our actual spend was about £50,000 in terms of time to participate in the programme. And I wouldn't be here now talking to you all if I didn't think it was worth its weight in gold. So look forward to being part of the panel and answering your questions, Morteza, and then anything else that your guests have and want to ask.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. While you have the mic, do you want to talk a little bit about what went into the decision-making process and, you know, what your expectations were going into the program and how did that unfold?
Yeah, of course. We had to reset our expectations quite early. You will, if you progress through this process, meet somebody called Maria Gosh at some point, who heads up the Partnership Fund of New York, who will share with you quite early on that this is not a sales track. This is not for you to come in and pitch your products and try and sell. This is an opportunity to get C-suite executives in some of the world's largest organizations to listen to you, talk to you, help you, mentor you, and really think about the products that you want to build going forward. And it may be, if you're anything like us, you go into the lab with one range of products and you come out of the lab with a completely different scope of product that we are now building that can serve a global mass market audience rather than just niche kind of country markets as we were before. Some of the decisions for us were around how on earth we were going to do it. So I wasn't sitting there as a founder twiddling my thumbs, wondering what to do with the 24 hours in every day I have. I was, like you, I'm sure, working 7 days a week, completely maxed out. At that point, we had about 50 large enterprise customers that we were trying to serve and support with just a team of 20 people. And so the biggest issue was, are we going to have time to do this and to do it properly? And the answer I came to as a founder quite quickly was, no, I'm not. So I'm going to have to hire in, and I'm going to have to hire in somebody who I trust as much as me being in the room to be a senior C-suite person that can, in effect, just focus fully for 3 months on the program. So I hired somebody called Natalie, who was joining us just for a 3-month engagement to man-mark me in the US, mirror the time zoning, because it meant for 3 months as a UK business, I was double time zoning. So for the weeks I was in the UK, I was doing a UK day and then a US evening into the, to about 11 o'clock at night. And then for the days and weeks that I was in the US, I was starting my meetings at 4:30 a.m., doing all my UK meetings, and then doing my US day and my US evening. And so I needed somebody to keep me sane and to face off to those meetings. And Natalie, it was quite a bonding experience, 3 months living with each other pretty much. And so she's now joined our board as our Chief Strategy Officer, and from seeing the opportunity from the global corporates. So I've covered cost, I've covered resource. The question you might be asking yourself is, if this is not about sales and this is about mentoring, and I've got a ton of people wanting to give me advice as mentoring, as we all do as founders, everybody wants to give you their opinion. Is this really worth 3 months of my time if I'm not going to get a sale at the end of it? And my very strong answer would be, yes, it is. You will not get this level of access ever again. This is our 3rd accelerator program. We've been on various others. We've been on Grow London, Scale Up Silicon Valley to the UK, Mount Side Ventures, various things. This is the only one where we genuinely had C-suite access and what is described in the program as a chaperone. And for those that are British, that chaperone doesn't mean anything in the UK. It's basically your point person who is going to own you, love you, speak to you every other day, and network the hell out of you out of that organization. And so we had 5 companies that we were matched into. So we had Bank of America, MasterCard, who's obviously Sarah. We had UBS, Edward Jones, and Prudential Financial. And across those 5 organizations, in the 3 months, we had 400 meetings. So this is not to be undertaken lightly. It was definitely, more than 50% of my time for those 3 months, and a full-time senior person doing it with me. But has it completely transformed our business and trajectory of business? Yes, it has. And am I now in contact with all 5 of those when we finish the program? Yes, we are, with 3 POCs in scoping.
Thank you, Lindsay. One of the points you really brought up was, this is not a place to come sell, but really partner and really revolutionize your business. Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about how you see this from your vantage point, and what happens in those 12 weeks and after those 12 weeks, where you are able to stay in touch with your startups and really mentor them in a very unique manner?
Yeah, of course. And first off, I don't want to know what percentage I was of those 400 meetings with Lindsay, but just to kind of give everyone a sense, right? As a chaperone, at least for me, it begins for me even before the program starts, right? So when I'm evaluating the companies who apply for the program, I am thinking through any potential synergies, area of interest that these startups have and are operating in that would be interesting for MasterCard to consider. And so that really sets up the basis of the 12-week program in terms of potential partnership areas or areas of focus. And then from there, once I actually, raise my hand to chaperone the companies that I want shortlisted. Once the companies are actually in the program, I'll set up bi-weekly sessions with each of the startups that I'm mentoring to determine almost like a quote unquote game plan throughout those 12 weeks. And I think that's really important because the game plan can be adjusted, it can be refined, but it serves as that kind of point of reference for the 12-week engagement for both the corporate as well as the startup, right? And from there we go into the priorities, right? So what are the startups' priorities as through the program? What are MasterCard's priorities? Can I provide them information on our strategy and the different areas that we're playing in, right? And that really determines the action plan and what introductions we want to make, and we can also adjust the messaging based on the different introductions that we're making internally. And so from there, I kind of facilitate the meetings. I provide, as Lindsay mentioned, access and introductions to, actually relatively senior executives throughout the organization, and provide context to those individuals, those business lines on what it is that this company is innovating on, right? Like, what are the startups actually bringing to the table? I also provide context to the startups on who they're meeting, who it is that what it is that they're focused on, what are their priorities, right? And from there, the startups will get feedback on their product and business from whether it's MasterCard product teams, our executives, our customer account teams from time to time as well. So just to name a few of them, but that's not all inclusive of everyone who we have access to. And in some cases, and I would say, majority of cases, we identified teams that are keen to learn more. They're keen to have follow-up conversations, and they'd like to at least explore partnership in some shape or form as part of a pilot or a proof of concept or some sort of partnership arrangement. So it's really, and of course, those engagements can actually continue to happen after the program, right? So there's a lot of opportunities, and it's almost like a launch pad for the companies who want to get to know the business and who the business wants to get to know as well. So it's kind of that mutual partnership.
Thank you so much. Lindsay, do you want to talk a little bit about specific advice and examples of how the experiences you had in those 12 weeks and your mentorship sessions and conversations, the 400 hours of meetings that you had, some specific examples for people to really appreciate the level of depth and experience?
Yeah, I will. And everyone's experience is going to be different, right? So, but as for mine, we had, by the time we went into the lab, probably around 8 flagship products. So everything from job boards, technical job boards, through to digital consumer platforms and things like that. And so the inclination would be, and certainly when I first went into the lab, I thought I was going to be getting product market feedback on those existing products, with the view being, how do I transport them from being a UK only to being suitable for the US market? The two big learns from that came probably in the first week was that don't tell us about the products, tell us about your value proposition. Tell us about the big things that you are solving for from our customers, for us as a business. And I don't really want to know about the products just yet. I just want to know what your value proposition is. And the second piece of advice we had was to go just ask loads of questions. So with us as a business who's focused on age as a demographic, that's our USP. We're over 50 specialists. Rather than saying, here's our 8 products, would they fit? How would they connect with your tech? How do we use them? What would we price them at? Which was where we were going in. We basically said, we know everything about over 50s. Tell us what we can solve for you. If you had a magic wand and we are your technical partners, what are the problems that we can solve for you around over 50s humans? Be they employees, be they customers, you tell us. And They told us. And the really great news was 3 out of 5 of the companies that we engaged with told us the exact same problem that they were having, that we had also heard from some of our UK large financial institution customers. So that set us on the path for the second half of our 12 weeks, just honing in on that. So let's not talk about what we do. That's easy. I can send you a deck to look at that. Let's scope out with you, if we were to go build this solution, how would we build it? What would it look like? And how could we deliver it on a global scale? So the conversation moved then from being about US to being about how do we do this in 44 countries? How do we do this for hundreds of thousands of employees? How do we do this for millions of consumers in every market all at once? And we would never have got there if we'd gone in with this is the product. We would have gone down a rabbit hole of having technical conversations with people around, well, you need to be this kind of data flow and this kind of, and that wasn't the driver. So I would strongly say, hold back all of your sales and technical instincts to just ask really open questions and really early on nail your value proposition. And you can see ours here. Quite simply, we enable you to attract, grow, and engage over 50s talent and consumers. That's our value prop. The how we do it, well, they don't need to know that just yet.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think one of the takeaways, Lindsay, that you bring up is every journey is going to be so customized and so different. So obviously it gets very nitty gritty and specific, and it's designed in a way that each startup gets really the most out of their experience of 12 weeks of being mentored and being able to really bring their target customers, the 4 to 6 financial services institutions, on their side of the table and get a variety of opinions and perspectives, which pretty much can be a bit of a representation of what the market is asking you, and sway in that way if that's your stage, or if your stage is much farther, then it's more about really what are the fine refinements you need to make. So Sarah, I wanted to bring you into the conversation and ask you a little more around the breadth and the scope of different types of startups you've seen over the years. I mean, this is MasterCard's 9th year participating into the program. And just on that topic, if you can kind of really share your priorities, right, for the coming year and broadly what you're seeing in financial services. So who should really apply to the program in terms of topic areas and priorities?
Sure. So, I mean, from the FinTech Innovation Lab perspective, I've, when the companies come through the program, I have a unique kind of project plan for each company, and each company is different, right? So in the last, in every year that I've participated in, I've had a company within a completely different vertical. And so just to give you some examples, Solo Funds was one of the companies that came through the program a few cohorts ago. Community finance platform where consumers can borrow, lend, and bank on their own terms. And that was one of the companies that I sponsored. And in order to actually, get the most out of the program, we identified that there was a strong synergy with our Center for Inclusive Growth team here at MasterCard, which is focused on financial inclusion. And so we made introductions to that company, and we actually were able to facilitate a partnership with one of our partners, Strive Health, which provides access to healthcare coverage for part-time workers and 1099 workers. So that was, one example. We had another company, Spiral, that's in the impact as a service space. So I also chaperone them. They had a significant focus on sustainability, donations, and data. And so the approach was definitely different. We connected them with our sustainability side of the business, which is actually a pretty important area for MasterCard, as well as we look at different emerging areas within FinTech. And we were actually able to lead, and we also connected them with our data team, and we were able to actually facilitate a partnership on the data side with them. And then, as I won't go over Lindsay's, but I think obviously there's completely different than any other startup. And we actually we had a different strategy where we introduced Lindsay and Natalie and her team to, members like Diversity and Inclusion Office, our Future of Work team. And so it's really with that kind of unique approach that we identified which teams we wanted to make the introductions to. From a MasterCard perspective, I would say I have to, of course, mention open banking as one of the areas, given it's the space that I operate in. So we are seeing that a lot of companies are leveraging open banking technology to provide new financial products and services to consumers and small businesses. So the ability to actually aggregate banking transaction data, sometimes other data, right? So insurance data, wealth data, even social data, and cleanse that data and provide it to the consumer or small business in a secure, consented manner is something that, and that really opens doors for financial products and services. And it could be, consumer and small business loans, credit cards, payment products, financial wellness products. So it's a really big area for us. And we're seeing that from a regulatory standpoint globally, it's evolving. So the CFPB is looking at new regulatory standards around it in the US. PSD3 is coming out in Europe, and we're seeing a few other regions also. So that's kind of from open banking perspective. And then I'll kind of quickly just mention a couple other areas that we're looking at. So obviously, and I saw it on the FinTech Innovation Lab page, but AI is one that comes to mind, right? So applying artificial intelligence to financial services, whether that's through machine learning models, just providing improved customer experiences through AI, fraud detection, and the list could go on, but AI is obviously an area of focus for us. We also have, a small business track. So looking at startups that are creating small business solutions specifically targeted at small businesses. We have a crypto and blockchain track. Looking at other areas like digital health, acceptance technology, embedded finance, new payment rails and instant payments, financial inclusion, and urban mobility. So those are some of just the areas that we're looking at. And I would say in terms of what really we're looking for is does the team have the relevant background, right? So is there actually the relevant background? Are they a diverse team? What's their funding and runway look like? Are they really for the FinTech Innovation Lab and actually for StartPath as well, it's really seed to Series B in terms of funding. So that's really what we're looking for. The solution, how is it differentiated versus competitors in this market from other alternatives? Is there any evidence that there's a large market opportunity or some sort of product fit validation here? What's the company's traction? How many customers do they have? Is there a strategic fit with MasterCard's prior key objectives or focus areas? And how are they really filling just a product gap potentially for MasterCard or our customers, right? Or other corporates who are part of the program. So that's really what we look for.
Thank you so much. That is super helpful. 2/3 of the program is spent with financial services, and then there are other components of the program where you spend some time. So Lindsay, if you can shed some light on your experience with that, right? The EIRs, the mentors, the regulatory meetings, and all the other meetings that you had. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, I will. And they are, just to, so don't spook everybody, they were in those 400 meetings. That included everybody. They weren't on top. But the entrepreneurs in residence were unbelievable. So they are very, very senior, wealthy people that have no need to be helping startups like us, other than a sheer desire to want to see the next tech, see the next innovation, and help give their experience. And so, we were meant to get, as part of the program, I think half an hour bookended at the beginning and at the end with each of them. Well, we had hours and hours and hours with ours. Maybe that's just because I'm a sweet talker, I don't know. But they have been incredibly helpful and continue to be helpful after the event. So one of them, I'm having dinner with next month, and he identified our chief technology officer for us, who's based in New York, who we've hired. So the connectivity to their network and their reach is not to be challenged. The regulatory day. So I went to DC to meet the regulators. It was less relevant for me as an individual company because we're not, specifically FinTech needing to pass some of those benchmarks. But the cohort that were in my program, and we've got to know each other really well through the program, they found it unbelievably helpful. And for me, I now have senior contacts in each of the regulators, that if we do come up against a sticky conversation, or we just don't know it because we're not in the US and we need someone, it's not you, but can you point the direction? They absolutely are open arms with, here's my contact details, here's my email, let me know what you want to know, we'll go find it, we'll help you. And certainly I'm an ex-banker by background. I've never had that relationship in the UK with our regulators. And so to get that kind of walk-in access to US state regulators was unbelievable. And so, the other bit I would say is, aside from your 5 corporates, there are other opportunities to network and meet outside the program. So there are a couple of kind of mixer events or networking events where we could meet in person previous years participants. And that again has been super helpful in terms of, just working out, where should I rent an apartment? Where, what's your advice around that? So that I've kind of gone to those kind of previous incumbents to help me navigate New York. And also it all culminates on an event called Demo Day, which is in June, which for us, it was at Fordham University. So, a good couple of hundred people in the room, great and good of Wall Street, VCs, etc. And that was a staggering event for us. So we had 10 VCs connect with us who saw me present at that event and are still engaged. And I'm meeting one in a couple of weeks' time back out in New York. And secondly, access to other companies that we weren't party to. So Fidelity, for example, are part of the program, but we'd had no connection with them whatsoever because they weren't our matched company. But because they saw me present, that kicked off a conversation. And just last week, I presented to their top 600 execs, and that wouldn't have happened. And that's starting another new conversation with a new potential client just as a result of the program. So it's a proper cliche to say, what you put in is what you get out. If I was critical of some of my cohort colleagues, the ones that wouldn't have got the most out of it were those that didn't show up, that weren't putting in the hours and making the connectivities and opening their diaries and being prepared to work crazy hours for 3 months. But if you're prepared to do that, you will get absolutely spades out of it.
The last topic area I'd like to cover before we jump into questions in the chat and also really open it up for the audience for any questions is really the application process, right? And we are at this juncture where today we open the applications. Most of the audience members are potentially thinking that they should apply, whether they should move forward, what would that process be like? So Sarah, if you can talk a little bit about what you see when you score applications, and then Lindsay, if you can talk about your experience, right, after Sarah's done, of what makes a good application. So off to you, Sarah.
Yeah, of course. And I think I touched on it a little bit before too, but when I look at applications, I mean, I'm looking at the value proposition. So first and foremost, right? So what area are they operating in? Is it an area that's aligned with the different areas that the FinTech Innovation Lab is looking at, that MasterCard's looking at, that our customers are looking at, right? So the first is kind of what industry, what space, and is it a growth industry in space, right? Like, are we seeing a lot of demand for it from our customers? And is there, a lot of, for instance, if it's payments, like how many transactions are actually happening in this space? What's the market opportunity, like the number of transactions or API calls for that matter? So that's some of the things I'll look at. Some of the things that I mentioned, the funding, right? So where are they on their trajectory, right? Like, are they, if they're at seed stage, maybe they have a handful of customers, but if they're a little bit later stage, like what are some of those proof points that show that they're at later stage, like how many customers have signed up? I also look at team size, how are they growing? What does their team look like? What's the breakdown of that? And then, it really just goes to what's the strategic fit between what they're doing and what we're doing. Is there anything that that piques my interest, right? Sometimes we'll have conversations with the other mentors as well around the startup. So there's, we have a finalist week where we actually, after the applications, we will rate all the applications and we'll invite the startups to come in. And that is helpful because it really brings the pitch to life. It brings like the actual the pitch, and then we'll ask questions, clarifying questions where we can ask, about specific clients, specific case studies. A lot of the times it will help if there's a case study that they can really bring the actual value to life, like, any uptick in customer loyalty or retention for someone like a 55 redefined, right? So it's a little bit of a Shark Tank, and then we'll have where the startups will pitch, and then we'll ask them questions, and we get information ahead of time, and we read the applications. But it is helpful to deliberate with the other mentors after the session to talk about the key trends, what they're seeing. Do they think it's relevant for their business, and what was differentiated for them, right? So those are some of the things I look at, but I would say a lot of the times we also will see similar companies operating in the same space. So that differentiation point is really important. And that differentiation point is always going to be the thing that we're looking at from a MasterCard perspective too.
Thank you, Sarah. Anything to add, Lindsay, in terms of what makes a good application, and how did you go about that process?
Yeah, so for me, additional things I'd be saying is really pull out the traction, the outcomes. So, for us, for a business that's doing broad things across broad sectors, we focused in our application on very specific case examples of what we're doing in financial services in other countries, so they could see that we're getting traction and maybe think, oh, would that work for us? The second thing was we were really clear around why we were there. What are we asking for? So, we were very clearly, we had a trade mission to the US. We thought we had traction, we had proof points, but we needed some mentorship. We needed to get product market fit feedback. And so we were very, very clear around why would we be showing up. And then the last bit for us was, what are we going to do in return? So for me, this is always a two-way street here. So, I'm not just going to show up and say, I'm going to participate in this and drain you for all of your great expertise. So for us, it was like, and in doing so, we're going to help you. There's stuff that we're going to help you with for free. We're going to give you some of our insight for free. We're going to train some of your people for free in return for you giving us great mentorship and great support. And so it felt less salesy and far more, this is a partnership, and you're going to help us and we're going to help you, and there's a win-win here. The demo pitch element is split into two parts. So once you've kind of got through the application stage and the filtering, the Shark Tank that Sarah's talking about, if you're a Brit like me, you would know it as Dragon's Den rather than Shark Tank. But it is very much, it's a U-shaped room with about 30 senior executives from these FIs. The thing I would say is that they are not technical people. So in that presentation, you have a complete mixed bag of people that are heads of innovation, people that are relationship leaders or just senior executives from those firms. And so where I saw people fall short was they went into a technical demo of here's the product and how it works, and just lost everyone in the room immediately. So go in with what's your value prop, why us, why you as an individual, because if they're going to spend a ton of time with you over the next 3 months, they've got to like you, because no one's doing this because they're being paid to do it. So make sure you kind of get across that personality, how you're going to help them, how they really hope that they can help you, and where you see this going. The demo day element of it, so that's the technical bit, and that's the bit where you've got a screen, you've got the product, you're not in a presentation format, you're in a room where people are coming up and talking to you and going, how does that work, and how does that click through, and where does the data get stored? That's where you get technical, and that's where you need two people. I just had me on a desk with about 50 people trying to ask me questions. So lesson learned, if you're going to do that, you need one person for the pitch and you need two people for the demo. And at that point, then hopefully you're through and on the program.
I would just add, after Lindsay, I remember after your presentation, everyone was wowed. So I would listen to everything that you said, because really, like, all of the different chaperones and mentors were really impressed, right? So I think it's the right feedback in terms of not going too technical in that kind of first Shark Tank experience, because you really do have different individuals, and so you want to give them a sense of what you're offering, but not go too into the details, because it will probably hurt you more than anything.
Thank you so much. At this point, we'll take any questions. So if anyone wants to get off mute and ask a question, you're so more than welcome to do that. I have been responding to questions in the chat, and we can bring some of them up too. But I want to give opportunity to anyone who would like to unmute and ask a question. As people are getting ready, there's a question, Sarah, particularly for you, that is supply chain fintech startups of interest? And for you, have you seen that topic come up?
I wouldn't say I have. I haven't. I mean, I guess it depends on what specific like supply chain they would be supporting. So depending on kind of what that flow looks like what is the actual industry that they're operating in could be interesting, right? We usually look at it from an industry perspective. So I would say supply chain would be like the way that they're supporting that industry. But if there are any comments on the type of industry, I could probably opine.
One of our cohort Malteser was supply chain, so they were construction supply chain tech. However, what they'd worked out, because they were helping construction companies aggregate their invoices between their various suppliers and material providers, they found out that one of the big companies that they were dealing with were insurance companies, because oftentimes the construction industry is trying to engage with their insurer about a build and signing things off, etc. And so they were supply chain, and they got great traction with the insurers that were on the program, and I think they got a POC off the back of it. So I would say yes, from that perspective.
And I think the major takeaway here is that there is no topic that's not relevant if you're solving problems for large financial services institutions. They are your buyers. If you want to have conversations with their stakeholders, we'd highly encourage you to apply, because we do basically connect you for your reviews of application with the folks that are interested in those particular topics. And given the depth and the breadth of these institutions, every topic is quite interesting, and you start getting exposure from the get-go. And as you go through different rounds, you get different types of exposure. So we also make offline connections. Obviously, the program and the 10 participants that make into the program are driven by consensus. But if there isn't enough consensus and someone's individually interested, we are so happy to make those connections. I see 3 hands up. So Doug, Ryan, and Corey. So Doug, go ahead, please.
Testing.
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this panel. So I understand and that the time you're looking for is kind of seed to Series A. I'm in the last stages of my seed round right now. We're doing quite well. I think that gives me a lot of time between now and when you guys are looking to finalize our applications to grow and such. If we're a SaaS FinTech platform, I don't want to go in more detail to try to pitch my entire company. What are the revenue components you're looking for? What are long-term growth and churn rates? Obviously, I'm not suggesting you guys are going to say, hey, if you're below this, don't apply. But what are some averages? I was looking through the alumni, and I've seen some companies that seem to it's a little over the place in terms of where they are now and trying to backcast when they applied. So I just want to know if I have to push harder or if we're comfortable with where we are right now for churn. We should focus more on quality versus quantity.
Yeah, I would encourage you to apply, and our team can look at the application and give you specific feedback to make sure that your application is positioned really well. We have pre-seed companies who have been in the program in the past and have been selected. So there's always that precedent. Ryan?
Thanks a lot for your time here. You actually kind of touched on the question I was about to ask, which is, I guess, when was the last time you guys took a pre-seed company? And if we are too early, what would be the best way to stay in contact as we continue to grow?
Yeah, I would encourage you to apply. We will give you feedback. There are definitely situations where folks reapply on the next year and they've gotten in, and there are folks who've gotten to finalist round and reapplied and gotten in. We also have a London chapter and an APAC chapter that the London chapter takes a bit of an early stage company. But we run them at different timelines. So we can always also help you get there. Once we have your application here, we can also connect offline on that. I see a couple hands up. I think Corey, you're next.
Hey everyone, thanks for the time and all of the information. Really appreciate it. I was just curious, is the program equity free? I may have missed if you touched on that.
Yeah, we do not take any warrants or equity. I see someone for Invo Techies up.
Hi, great presentation. I love the information. So based on what Lindsay said, my question is for her. So you mentioned earlier that you walked into the program with different set of products than what you walked out with. So my question was the demo that you built and worked on demo day, was it based on what you walked in or what you walked out?
No, it was telling them basically the trajectory that we were going to go. So we're not, it's a very British phrase, we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So we're not losing what we've built already. What we're creating is the future over the next 12 to 18 months of what we're building so that we can serve them on much greater scale in a much deeper context. But when we went in to present, obviously we hadn't even scoped this thing out. So we just went with what we knew in that one.
Okay, so it's more of presenting the vision.
Correct. Exactly. Okay. Yeah, and we still haven't built it now because I need to raise a ton of money now to build it. So yeah, it took us in a different direction, but with clients that we hope are going to build partners with it. But certainly, it's just around saying this is then the trajectory we're going, and this is how we're having impact today.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for everyone's time.